All right, so real quick, let me walk you through getting set up here. I'll show you how to do all this firsthand here, but for the summary, we're going to install Anaconda, which is a Python environment made for scientific computing and data science and machine learning. Once we have that set up, we'll install a package called py.plus, which we'll use later on in the course for visualizing decision trees, and we'll also install TensorFlow, which we're going to use to build neural networks and real AI and deep learning later on in the course. We'll also download the course materials from my website here, and open up one of the notebooks from that materials and see if it works. So let's dive in. So let's start by heading over to anaconda.com. This will be the Python environment that we use for this course. It is already made for data science and data analytics, so it saves us a lot of trouble in setting things up. Just head on over to the big friendly Get Started button, or however you need to navigate to the download area. We're going to download the Anaconda installers. And we want, for me, the 64-bit Windows version. Obviously, choose whatever version makes sense for whatever operating system you are using. But for me, that's Windows 64-bit. So we'll wait for that to download. Should come down pretty quickly. And once that's down, we're just going to open the installer and run it. All right, so nothing special here, just your standard Windows installer. I'll hit Next to start, agree to the license terms, install it just for me, and you want to make sure you're installing this someplace that has plenty of hard drive space. For me, the C drive is a little bit tight because it's a small SSD, so I'm actually going to change this to my E drive. Just do whatever makes sense for your system to make sure that you have enough room for it. And we'll hit Next to continue. Those default options are fine. And now we just wait for it to install. And this will take a few minutes. There's a lot of stuff to install, so I'll pause and come back when this is done. All right, a couple of minutes later, that did finish. So I'll hit Next to continue on with the installer. And we'll just say Next again. And I'm going to uncheck these options. I don't really need to see a tutorial. And there we have it. So now that Anaconda's been installed, we just need to install a couple of extra packages into it. So to get into our new Anaconda environment, go to your Start menu and look for the Anaconda 3 folder there. And from there, select Anaconda Prompt. And you should see a little command terminal like this. And from here, we're just going to type in conda install py.plus. And this is just going to install a package to let us visualize decision trees later in the course. It'll take a moment to figure out how to do that. And when you get that prompt, just say Y, enter, and let it do its thing. All right, very good. Next, we need to install the TensorFlow package. That's what we're going to be using for deep learning later in the course and neural networks and all that fun stuff. Normally, you would say conda install TensorFlow to do that, but there's a bug with that right now on Windows. So instead, we're going to say pip install TensorFlow, and that should work. Again, just let it do its thing. Bunch of dependencies it has to get first, but shouldn't take too long. All right, so now we have TensorFlow installed as well. So let's leave this window up. We're going to come back to it a little bit later, but let's go back to our web browser and download the course materials next. For that, you'll head over to sundog-education.com/machine-learning. Pay attention to the dashes and capitalization, it all matters. And once you're here, you'll find a nice friendly link for the course materials. Just go ahead and click that. And down it comes. While you're here, if you want a copy of the slides, you'll find those here as well. We also have a Facebook group for the course available if you want to collaborate with your fellow students. It's not a place where you can get Q&A from me as an instructor, but if you want to just sort of trade notes with each other, that's a good place for it. And we'll also find a copy of the installation instructions that we just went through here if you need them. Also, you can sign up for our mailing list if you want to, and there's also a book version of this course if you're interested. Definitely not required, though. Once that's downloaded, go ahead and open that up. And let's expand the course materials there. Right-click and extract all. And what's in here is a bunch of what we call Jupyter Notebook files. These are ways of running Python code interactively within a web browser. So pretty much every lecture in this course is going to be accompanied with a hands-on IPython notebook that you can play around with and experiment with, and that's what's in here. Also in here is a lot of experimental sort of test data that you can use for actually training these models and playing around and actually making predictions based on real data. And that's what most of what's being decompressed right now is. Give that some time to finish decompressing. All right, it's done unzipping, so let's go ahead and find the folder that it expanded into. There should be an ML course folder now there, and let's open that up. And inside the ML course folder is another ML course folder. This is the one that we actually want. So let's go ahead and select that ML course folder inside the other one. And I'm going to hit Control X to cut that. And now we want to put that someplace that's going to be easy for us to remember and easy to type. So I'm going to put this on the root of my C drive. And I'll just hit Control V to paste it into my C drive here. Let that copy over. And the reason I'm putting it here is because we're going to have to type in the path that it's in. That's going to be C:\ML course in this case. All right, so now we have a CML course folder, and inside that is the actual course materials themselves. You can see all the data there, as well as all the IPython notebooks. That's what IPYNB stands for. It's called a Jupyter notebook these days. So let's go ahead and try one and see if it actually works, yeah? So go back to our Anaconda prompt here. And we're done with all this stuff in the background. So what you need to do, remember to practice this, guys. This is going to be something you need to do with almost every lecture. To actually open up the notebook file for a given lecture, first you need to open up an Anaconda prompt. And again, that's under the Start menu, under the Anaconda menu. And then I need you to CD to wherever you installed those materials. So I'm going to say CD C:\ML course, because that's where I installed the course materials. It's important that you start this from within the correct directory, or else these notebooks won't show up. But once we're in the directory that we actually install these materials to, I can then type in Jupyter Notebook, and that will start up the web browser that will allow me to actually run those notebooks. So again, remember, for every time you need to open up on a Jupyter Notebook, open up an Anaconda prompt, CD to the directory you installed the course materials to, and then type in Jupyter Notebook. You might want to write this down, guys. You're going to have to do this again a lot in the future. And what this does is actually bring up your web browser, and this brings us to the Jupyter main page here where we can actually select the different notebooks to run. So let's see if it actually works. Let's scroll down a bit. Outliers is a fun one. So let's click on outliers.ipynb. And a quick introduction to Jupyter Notebooks here. You can see that it's basically a way of running Python code inline, where you can actually see the results within your browser and run it. And it's not just a pre-made web page. You can actually run code in here. So watch this. I can actually click in one of these blocks here and hit the run button. It actually executes this code and generates a new graph in response to that. So this is a great way to sort of interactively experiment with some Python code and play around with new algorithms. And that's exactly what we're going to do in this course. So let's really quickly walk through this example here just so you can see what's kind of going on at a high level. We'll talk about it in more depth later. But basically what's going on here is we're simulating an income distribution. So we've simulated a bunch of random people who have incomes ranging from, $27,000 plus or minus $15,000 a year. And then to mess things up, we throw in Jeff Bezos, who's, got $1 billion to his name, probably more than that at this point, right? And you can see that that kind of skews our distribution here. So we just have this one little skinny point here that represents all the normal people. And then we have Jeff Bezos out here kind of messing up our data. So what we're talking about in this particular exercise is how to identify outliers like Jeff Bezos and remove them from our data so that we can actually get a more meaningful distribution. And that's what's happening here. And you can actually, it's a shortcut to run this whole thing all at once. You can go to the kernel menu here and say restart and run all. And that will actually automatically rerun all of these cells. And you can see that it actually works. So hopefully if you do that, you're seeing some pretty graphs. And if so, that means that you have everything set up properly. Congratulations. Again, remember how to get here, guys. Write it down. You're going to open up an Anaconda prompt, cd to the directory that you installed the course materials to, and then type in Jupyter Notebook and select the notebook that you want to open. All right, with that under our belt, let's move on and actually start learning some stuff. Hey, Frank Kane here from the Sundog Education Course Recording Studio. Now, depending on what platform you're watching this course on, you might be prompted for a review of it right after this lecture or maybe the next one. And I hope you're enjoying it so far, but if you need more time to really form an opinion, there should be a little Ask Me Later button on there too. So if you're not sure about this course yet and you want to give it some more time, feel free to hit that, and they'll prompt you for a review later on in the course where you'll have more of it under your belt to form an opinion with. Really important to me that you leave an honest and well-informed review of this course because reviews are really critical to instructors like me who make their livelihood off of this stuff. Anyhow, I hope you've enjoyed what you